welcome folks to the Freedom Hub Working Group webinar. Let's see, I am going to share my screen real quick here. This is our website. I am Charles Frohman, not Jeff Cantor. This is Jeff Cantor's channel on Zoom, and he is still on vacation. I just got back, and I think Guru Ganesha just got back himself. I'm sure other folks are leaving and coming for vacation. If you hear any noise in the background, I'm at Oma's in Western Maryland, and there's a bunch of kids making a lot of noise, and maybe if they're smart, they'll come sabotage my call. They love to do. So this is the webinar section of our website. If you go to your-mp.com, you'll see a bunch of pull-down menus under health. You can learn about the commercial venture that Joe Stoffacher on the call here and I are engaged in. We're creating cash patience and making a little money, changing the world, and we're putting our money back into this weekly event. We're having big thinkers in politics, in disruption, entrepreneurship. And today is going to be a fun one because the guest is an old friend of mine, Guru Ganesha Singh Khalsa, whom I met through my experience in yoga. And so we're going to have a conversation. Everyone is welcome to keep your video on, stay unmuted. We'll have a vigorous Q&A because for those of us in sales, Guru Ganesha is a highly sought after trainer for how to do sales right, by taking the sales sort of turn-off element out of the conversation and to telling you how to have productive, flourishing conversations where everyone's happy in the end. And if you do want to reconnect with them after the call, go to this website again, your-mp.com, and scroll down to continuing the conversation. And that's where you can contact any of our past speakers and follow up. Also at YouTube, at the Freedom Hub Working Group channel, you can see any of our past speakers. Right here, I'm pointing to is Gary Hoover. If you're into the sales training or entrepreneurship training type of talks, we've had a lot of those over the years, really good ones. Or if you're into politics, we are disruptors in either channel, politics or entrepreneurship. We want to break open the world and really allow everyone to flourish. And with that, let me stop sharing my screen. And Guru Ganesha, let me just say how I met you, and then maybe you could, introduce yourself to folks who don't know you. You do have some fans in this Zoom who know who you are, and obviously they respect what you do since they're coming back here, and they were giving you rave reviews at LinkedIn, telling all their friends to come on board and hear what Guru Ganesha has to say. So Guru Ganesha is a musician. He's a great yogi. And what you discover when you get into a certain yoga style is you get to know your fellow yogis as the multidimensional humans they are, and they all come from different places in the world. And Guru Ganesha has a fascinating background. A lot of the Kundalini yogis who became Sikhs did come from the hippie days. So they have great stories from the 60s and 70s and that era. Guru Ganesha definitely fits that bill. I'll let him tell the story, but I guess he was a guitarist for a band that opened for the Allman Brothers. Very cool. And he even brought the Grateful Dead to, was it Clark University? I remember.
Wow.
And, his background since then, he's grown into a world-class sales trainer with the Sandler Group. I think that's what we call him. And now he has his own company, Conscious Selling. And I think this is a two-parter. Not only do salespeople, I've gotten into sales with a disruptive health plan. Others on this call, I'm sure, are in their own disruptive area in their market. But I think more and more people are finding themselves in this position, whether they want to or not, with the increasing gig-like nature of this market. People have to diversify and find new revenue channels, and it intimidates them. They don't want to sell. They discover that if they do it the wrong way, They create bad impressions. They create roadblocks where people don't want to hear a sales pitch. So, Guru Ganesha, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. It's nice to see you. I didn't realize your beard was gray now, but it's very distinguished. And,
Yeah.
Charles, generally when I get in front of a group, and this is one of the first things I say when I do a live, on-site training program is, first thing people want to know is, Ganesh, what's with the turban and the beard? You sound like you're from Brooklyn. And I'm not really from Brooklyn, although I have a lot of my fondest people are in that area. Grew up in Natick, Mass, but there's an easy answer. You see, my father's Russian Jewish ancestry, my mother's Irish Catholic. I took a little bit too much LSD in college. This is what happens to you, man. And I actually was mainly as a young man interested in music. I had a couple of rock and roll bands. We never quite made it, but we did tour with the Allman Brothers, and we opened for them. The band was called Cat's Cradle, and but ultimately, I got involved in doing Kundalini yoga, joined an ashram, and the at that time the community were mostly a bunch of folks in their early 20s, and we started getting married as people will, and then started having children as people will. And something interesting happens when you get married and you start having children. You start realizing, wow, I need to make a living, because everything's expensive in life. So I got into sales in 1974 and relying on my voice and personality. I had no training at the time. And I sold private resort development property up in the Blue Ridge Mountains of West Virginia. Subsequently, I became the shoe guru. I became a manufacturer's rep for a bunch of different shoes like Earth Shoe, the unconventional stuff, Birkenstock sandals, Shakti shoes. Then in 79, one of my shoe customers were developing a software package for retail. They have primarily shoes, and he got the bright idea that Ganesh, this crazy dude that would come in and tell him bad jokes that he enjoyed, maybe Ganesh could sell computerized retail management systems. Problem was, it was a very different sale than selling shoes to retail stores, because that was, you put your shoes up and they go, no way, no way, no way, no, give me a case of those. It's a one-call business. But all of a sudden now I'm selling computer systems to retail stores. And if somebody owned 8 stores, it was about $40K per store. So now I'm selling what could be a mid-6-figure solution to people who had been using cash registers for decades. So my initial approach to making sales was not working, which is crack a few bad jokes, show them your wares, and get them to convince them to buy. Not for selling complex, big dollar technical solutions. And I was fortunate that somebody, the owner of the companies, found out about Sandler method, which is very, very counterintuitive. Because in Sandler, instead of you convincing people to buy, you learn how to facilitate a conversation where, in essence, it becomes a prospective client's responsibility to convince you. And sounds simple. I mean, everything that I teach is common sense. Unfortunately, it's painfully uncommon in the sales profession. So in any event, to make a long story short, I sold computerized retail management systems from about 82 to 89, did really well, started at the bottom, ended up being the top rep in the company out of 35 reps when the company was bought by IBM, bought by Cam Data, who was later bought by IBM. And then, and I was applying the principles I was learning in the Sandler training at that time. And before you know it, the president's company asked me, hey, Ganesh, how about going around to the regional offices and teaching them what you're doing out there? And I said, well, they're not going to want to listen to me. Look at them, crazy looking. They had a bet going that somebody looked like me was never going to make a sale, let alone I'm going to go around and teach them how to sell. But he said, well, I'll tell you what, I'm not, you're still going to have your quota. You still got to carry your bag, but I'll pay you, $3,000, $4,000 extra a month to make one stop every month in a regional office. So I started doing it. I said, okay, you convinced me. So I started doing it and discovered that I really enjoyed helping, in addition to helping myself succeed, I got a tremendous amount of, maybe you call it spiritual satisfaction, helping others succeed. Because, my philosophy of life is we're here to help others succeed. And that's how we help ourselves succeed as well. So in '89, I bought a franchise and second mortgage my house. My wife wasn't happy about this decision because I was making a lot of money selling computerized retail management systems. But I just wanted to do something that was more fulfilling. And for the next 28 years, it wasn't overnight, but I was one of the top producing Sandler franchisees out of over 200 for many, many years. And in 2000, meanwhile, I've been developing kind of next level sales training. And in 2017, I had an amicable parting of ways with Sandler and Frank Garza and myself. Frank, by the way, is the father of the Naismith Award winner this year in college basketball, Luka Garza, who I teach meditation to before every game. He's going to be he'll be in the first or second round in this upcoming NBA draft. Check him out, Luka Garza. Right, since he started meditating, his numbers have almost doubled, but that's a whole other story. In any event, my partner and I, Frank Garza, opened Conscious Selling in January of 2017. And, the methodology in terms of being consultative and in terms of learning how to facilitate and leading the buyer seller dance from the initial point of contact till when you either have a signed contract or a no is similar. But I think it's next generation, but we're injecting a lot of consciousness in it because I think in professional selling, people do business, Charles, with people they like and trust. Give me a like if you agree with that. People do business with people they like and trust. But think about it. I bet you we have a bunch of folks on here who are who sell as part of their business, or that's their profession. But everybody on the call right now, Charles, is also a buyer, right? You're a buyer, whether it's in business or whether in your personal life. How many of you buy stuff? Everybody buys stuff, right? How many of you have had an unpleasant experience with a seller? Everybody raises their hand, right? And if you had to describe what was unpleasant about it, it's probably their approach. Maybe they're a little pushy, a little overly aggressive, but you definitely get the impression that they're trying to get their needs met rather than yours. True or false?
True.
And if you talk to them individually, they say, oh, I'm not really like that. I really want to help. But what they're doing unconsciously is transmitting neediness. They talk too much. They don't listen. They act like they know everything. But mainly, the vast majority of people, when they get into sales, become what I call convincers. They're always trying to convince people to buy. Now, Charles, what's been your experience when faced with a seller trying to convince you to buy something?
The desire to find a place to hide and get away.
Right?
Yeah.
Would you say, so you've had some unpleasant experiences over the years with that kind of a seller, fair?
Yes.
And if you had to use a word or phrase to describe what they were like, what would you use?
Just deaf to the situation that I was not interested.
Yeah, and sometimes you even need what they're selling, but 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes with them and you're out of there.
Yeah.
Correct? So correct me if I'm wrong, Charles, but I bet you have probably either in the left or right hemisphere of your brain what I call or first off, let's say you have developed a stereotype. We're in a world of stereotypes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Salespeople have stereotypes, lawyers, they're stereotypes, guys with turbans and beards have stereotypes. But I bet you carry around, and everybody else on this call carries around a stereotype in their psyche of the typical pushy, obnoxious, self-serving salesperson, correct?
Correct.
And somebody may not be like that, but if they transmit certain signals, how long before, you're like, oh, that's one of those?
Maybe 10 seconds.
10 seconds if you're lucky. And then the defenses go up, right? And you are now in a defensive posture. Fair?
Yep.
And if it's actually a predefined appointment and they realize they're going to be talking to a salesperson, they may come into the call. Let's say Joe's marketing did great and you're the seller and you got he's helped you set up a 45-minute appointment with a prospective client who's got some needs in the area you got a solution. But correct me if I'm wrong, the majority of those folks realizing they're the prospective client in a buyer-seller situation are already a little bit in a defensive posture. Would you agree?
I would agree.
So your big challenge in sales, everybody wants to know techniques for, what's your sales process, what's your methodology, but what they don't realize, unless you can move that person from being in a defensive posture to being in what I call growth mode. Now, growth mode means they're looking at you and going, wow, I like this guy. He's different. He doesn't seem like the typical seller trying to convince me to buy. He seems to care about doing what's right for me. Would you agree? That's the first most important thing, right, Tarun? You look familiar, man. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? I'm Ross's buddy.
Oh, you're Ross's buddy. Yeah. I'm glad you're here. So here you are. You've got somebody maybe in defensive posture. Gee, I would sure love them to be in growth mode. When they're in growth mode, they're seeing you as a potential ally. This is somebody I can trust enough to open up and tell them what's really going on, what I'm looking for, what I'm trying to do better, right? What's working, what's not working in the area. Now, you're selling some kind of health insurance, correct, Charles?
I am.
Now, the majority of people that you're talking to, do they already have insurance, but they're looking for better insurance, or they have no insurance and they're thinking maybe I need to get insurance?
It's a combination of the two. People who have overpriced insurance and don't know any better. And then a lot of folks who just don't have it and are wondering if it's even worth the price.
So either way,
Yeah.
you need to understand their motivation. All right. But before we do that, we got to get them in growth mode. So I might say to you, let's say you're a prospective client. Charles, I see you were on their website and inquired a little bit. Frankly, I don't know yet if what we do is right for you. All right. It's not right for everyone. With your permission, what I was hoping to do in our 45 minutes, take the first 20 minutes and better understand what inspired you to reach out to us. Then I'll have some more questions because, what separates us from our competition is that we're in the business of providing health insurance solutions that really hit the center of the target for what our prospective client is looking for. So with your permission, I'd like to take the first 20 minutes and really understand what's going on, what you're looking for, okay? What inspired you to reach out? Then I'll be in a better position, Charles, to say, hey, I think we can help, and maybe give you a brief high-level overview of what I have in mind that would be a fit for what you just told me. Or I'll say, you know what? Let me recommend, Charles, that you talk to person A, B, or C, because I know everybody in this business. And if we're not right for you, there may be somebody else that's right for you. And of course, if that's the case, I'll tell you why I'm directing you to such person. Are you comfortable if we approach it that way?
Yeah, that's better because you're giving me choices. I'm not relying on you.
All right, now stop out of the role play. As a buyer, how might a buyer respond to that?
I think they would feel that you're good. You're not pressuring them. That you're not the only solution now.
And by the way, I want to make something clear. This is not a tactic. This has to be sincere. In other words, the first thing you've got to look at as a professional seller is, what is your intention? If you have you have an appointment on your calendar for say 5 o'clock Pacific today. First thing you got to ask yourself, what is my intent? This is a first call with somebody who's just exploring things. What's your intention? Well, I can tell you the wrong intention that will help ensure that you fail in sales. The wrong intention is, my intention is to make a sale. Why is that the wrong intention?
You're not
Because-
looking for. Oh,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, because first of all, you don't understand if there's a problem that you can solve for, and you don't understand how you can position yourself with their operation and their goals.
Exactly. So think about it. If you make a slight shift from having the intention to make sales to having the intention to only do business, if both parties are convinced it's the right thing to do. People feel, put that eye where I say, hey, Charles, let you and I have an understanding that we're only going to work together. We're only going to do business together if we're both convinced it's the right thing for you. Are you comfortable if we have that mutual intention for our time together?
Yeah.
So by saying these kinds of things, think about it. What salesperson has ever told them, hey, let's only do business together if we're both convinced it's the right thing to do and that you're going to get a great return on your investment? How many sellers come into the front end of a sales process like that?
Too few.
Too few, I agree. Now, if you do this and you do it from the inside out, because conscious selling is about selling from the inside out, not the outside in. The intention comes here. It's in your heart. It's actually about caring for the other human being. Because if they, in any way, manner, or form, like I said before, get the sense that you're there because you need their business, you got to get your needs met. You got 3 kids and Johnny needs a pair of shoes. If they get the impression that that's why you're in this meeting, they're even reluctant to tell you what their issues are. They're sensing that, because their stereotype is that type of non-conscious seller is there to try to manipulate them into buying. So anybody that's on this call because they want to learn how to have a manipulative edge over buyers, I'm the wrong guy. I'm not going to teach you how to have a manipulative edge over buyers. I'm going to help you to discover the best way to help the other person in your conversations relax and start trusting you, start seeing you as different. Wow. But I'm telling you, it's a razor's edge, because all it takes is during your sales, your sales process, for you to ask one eye-centered, what I call eye-centered question, and all that trust that you could have built up over, 6 meetings can crumble rapidly. Let's say everything was going great and we're getting close to you making a decision, perhaps to buy. And I call you up one day, hey, Charles, and my sense is you pretty much decided to go with us. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Hey, you think we can get this done by the end of the month, buddy?
Now we can try.
Now, how are you feeling when a seller asks what I call an eye-centered question? Can we get this done by the end of the month? Woo!
What's the hurry?
Right. You see what's going on? Your pendulum starts going the other way.
So I guess
in my selling system, under no circumstance are you ever asking eye-centered questions. Everything is customer-centric, client-centered. But at the same time, I teach sellers how to command respect and be in the leadership position from the initial point of contact all the way up to where you either have a signed contract or you're parting friends and neither party has a to-do and another to-do in their inbox.
That's fantastic.
And
Joe, what do you think about that?
While I'm on a roll here, one other.
Go ahead.
How many of you've noticed that you're typically, the seller is typically more committed to the next step than the prospective client is? How many of you have noticed that, if you were honest? I see hands going up. Now, why is that? Why is the seller, the buyer's the one in need, but seller's in need too, right? Why is the seller typically, when an appointment gets canceled, Charles, who usually cancels it?
The buyer.
Why isn't that? Isn't that a little back asswards?
we don't have enough respect for our time.
All right, you didn't command enough respect, but also chances are you might have applied a little pressure to get that appointment as opposed to them convincing you. So the other thing about conscious selling, and I can't teach it in an hour, we only got about 28 minutes left, is every step of the way, there needs to be a mutual level of commitment. Now, you can't force the other person to be as committed as you to a next step, right? And we know that in our personal lives. Single people meet somebody, they fall in love, and inevitably one person is more committed to a visualized next step than the other. But in sales, every step of the way, there needs to be a mutual level of commitment. So I can't force you to be as committed as me. I can't demand it. How do I do it? I have to find out. In other words, do you have, and it starts by doing what I call using a commitment meter. So when I'm doing discovery, first, we're going to create a whole role reversal, and it's got to be a paradigm shift in your psyche. You're not, as I said earlier, you're not there to convince somebody to buy. You're going to be facilitating a conversation that focuses their minds on important subject matter for both of you, where it becomes, if you're a fly on the wall watching that buyer-seller interaction, the fly is going, damn, I've never seen it done this way. It becomes the buyer's responsibility, A, to convince you they've got issues that you have a solution for, B, to share with you the history behind those issues so you understand, has there been any sense of urgency leading up to now? Have they looked at other providers, right? How long have they been trying to solve this problem? What have they done to try to address this problem? Then I call it, normally it's kind of business financial impact, but what's the impact in your world? It might be, well, what's the impact, the fact that you don't have a good insurance policy in place, for example, how's that impacting your overall life? Now, if it's business to business, I'd be facilitating them quantifying what's the business financial impact, past, present, and moving into the future, the fact that you've got problems with A, B, and C. And they say, wow, geez, I don't know. Well, what's your gut tell you, Charles? If your CEO came in here and said, hey, give me a number, Charles, what's this problem costing us? What would you say? Well, I had somebody the other day was calling me about sales training, and they said, and they told me 3 or 4 major problems they felt their sales team had, the sales individuals. And I asked them, chances are it'd be difficult to quantify how much money you're leaving on the table because of these issues. The guy says to me, oh, no, I got a pretty good sense of it, Ganesh. I said, well, how much? He said, millions. They're a $250 million a year tech company. He said millions. I said, low millions? He said, no, Ganesh, tens of millions of dollars. Really? How so? How are these problems costing millions and millions? So the next 10 minutes, he explained to me why the lack of selling skill that his 75 reps had was costing them millions of dollars. So needless to say, who's convincing who that they need sales training? Is it me saying, oh, you need me? No, I'm just asking questions. So now he raised issues that I knew I could help with. I don't have magic dust I'm going to sprinkle. I knew we could help. It's always going to take a while. Everybody's trying to make sales work in a company, right? But he had issues like very inaccurate forecasts, selling cycles. Their average sale was about 125K, but it was taking them on the average 165 days to get a yes or a no, which is way too long for that size of a purchase. I know because I've been working with the top tech companies in the world for 32 years. I know where that selling cycle should be for $125,000. And also, they wanted to increase the size of their average deal. And 4, they were doing too much discounting. So hearing all that's classic. So I knew I could help them, but I wanted to get a sense as what's their perception of what this is costing them. And Charles, why do you think that's so important for me to know even before I talk about my solution and what it costs?
To have a better idea of their problem, see if you can solve it.
That, but I also, from a cost justification standpoint, they have to convince me that they can cost justify my solution. I'm listening and I'm figuring this as a real comprehensive sales training solution for these issues, probably going to be $300,000 to $500,000. All right. A solution that's actually going to work. It's one thing I could do a 2-day, what I call Band-Aid training, getting everybody excited about these concepts. But a month later, they're all going to be doing the same stuff they did before they met me. Follow what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But so I said, hey, if you have to round it off to a number, 10 million, 20 million, 30. He said, at least 30 to $50 million a year we're leaving on the table. And then I went to a personal level. I said, Jim, finding a better way, how high of a personal priority for you? You know what he said to me? He said, it's my number one priority. I said, why so high? He said, I like this job. And if I don't turn things around, I was $20 million short in new logo business last year. It's amazing I still have my job, but that was because of the prior 8 years, he said. So now what's happened? He's convinced me that his issues, he has challenges that I can help him with. He recognizes those challenges are costing him $30 to $50 million a year. I'm confident that I can have a significant impact for a mere $300,000 to $500,000. And why did I ask him how high of a personal priority? Because that's where I can answer the question. If I can give him the hope that I have the best solution to these issues, how many of you think he'll agree to walk side by side with me through the process? He doesn't have to guarantee to buy. But I know all I have to do is give him the hope. Maybe a few, 10 minutes from now in the meeting, I give him a brief high-level overview and I tell him conceptually how I'm going to help him solve all 4 of those problems. Then all I have to do is ask him, well, what do you like to do next? And I already know what he's going to say. He's going to say, Ganesh, can we have a closer look at this? Okay, well, assuming you find a right solution, when's the latest you'd want to start implementing? So then he's got to convince me he's able and willing to make the necessary investment. Now, what if I said, by the way, Charles, you're looking at an investment of $300,000 to $500,000 first year. Does that mean you'd be reluctant to continue the conversation? A lot of buyers, let's role play. Does that mean, now remember everything that went on prior, you just told me your problems are costing you $35, $50 million a year. and it's a high priority to you personally, you don't want to lose your job. I said, Charles, a solution that truly works. Let's say I just gave you a brief overview and I said, what do you think? He said, wow, that sounds like exactly what we need. I said, Charles, would it help you get a general idea what your investment would look like first year to get this done?
Yeah.
Well, depending on the bells and whistles, you're looking low end about 300K, high end 500K. Should we discontinue our discussion?
No. Nice question.
All right, but let's assume we do the due diligence and you're convinced I'm not going to guarantee, I can't guarantee anything, but let's say you're convinced, wow, if we successfully implement this, we're going to do dramatically better over the next 12 months. Do you have 300 to 500K anywhere that you could apply to this pursuit? I'm not asking you to wire me a check now, but do you have that money somewhere?
I would hope I would.
Well, when you say you would hope you would, what exactly does that mean, Charles?
Well, in this role play, sure, I've got budget for that if it amounts to $30 million in sales.
Yeah, but you follow what I'm saying? Because first off, he's got to convince me that he's got challenges that I can address. Then you have to convince me that you're going to be able and willing to make the necessary investment, which is why I spent some time building $30 to $50 million of value into the deal. Then you have to convince me that finding a better way is a high enough personal priority to where if I give you the hope that I've got the right solution, you'll walk side by side with me through the process. Meaning in my system, we're going to work together to co-build, for lack of a better term, a project plan that defines the most effective, efficient way for our two organizations to work together. So you have all, you and your colleagues, because I'm also going to find out, when you make a tough decision like this, you get any help internally. All of this stuff I'm going to know in advance. Together, we're going to co-build the plan. By the way, everything I'm advocating is in both parties' best interest, not just mine, not just yours. It's in both of our best interests. So I won't even start, most people will have a chat and the buyer might say, okay, let me have a look. Oh, okay. Let's schedule a demo. Then they give the demo and people, at the end of the demo, they're like, well, maybe it takes them a few days to get the guy back on the phone. Hey, that was a great demo. Give me a call back in about 3 months. We don't have any budget dollars for this now. So as a sales trainer, I'm asking, why'd you give the demo? How about, your time is unbelievably valuable. You do not give it away. Your prospective, and this is just between us sellers, your prospective client has to earn it. You follow what I'm saying? Your prospective client has to, how do they earn your time? By convincing you that if you engage, there's a high probability, they can't guarantee they're going to buy, but by doing the kind of qualification process I teach, the way, the way I teach it, you're only going to be moving forward with very high probability buyers. Of course, if you got nothing in your pipe, you're a little bit more desperate. I understand. You're more likely to have happy years. And yeah, they qualified because it feels good to get up in the morning and know you have at least something in your pipeline. But as you get better and better at sales, you're going to become much, much more particular about who you spend your time with.
That's fantastic, Guru Ganesha. Shall we open up to questions?
Yes, I would love to hear from.
I was actually going to chime in and say that just on that note, I think that my career really changed when I spoke to Ross at one point, and he introduced the concept of not having a qualification call, but a disqualification call.
Yeah.
And like looking for as many reasons why this person will not be interested in or will not commit to next steps in the process or whatever it is, and finding as many points of resistance in early on to make sure that you solve them early and they don't come up later.
That's exactly right, Joe. Is Ross still on the line? Ross is, one of one of my most successful colleagues in our organization, and he really walks the talk. And I hear often from his clients, "Wow, Ross actually used the stuff on us." Well, of course he did, because he has the conviction it's in both parties' best interest to use the stuff. But ultimately, when you gain your confidence, and on a sales call you have calm confidence, your job in the disqualification or qualification part of the process, whatever you want to call it, is anything that could cause this deal not to happen. When do you want it to emerge?
As early as possible.
As early as possible, because I can't tell you how many of my clients spin wheels for months and months and expend huge amounts of time, energy, and resources, only to find out that the company didn't allocate budget, or the key decision maker was their son-in-law worked for the competition. I mean, wouldn't it be better for everybody if there's not a fit on every level to find it out as soon as possible? Thank you, Joe. I'm going to call you Guru Joe from now
on. Speaking of Joe, what do you think so far, what we've heard?
I love it. You definitely want to qualify or unqualify the prospect, as Torrin was discussing. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yeah, it's Tarun.
Tarun.
There we go.
Sorry about that. Thank you for correcting me.
I actually I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
I'm curious. We talk about how, like, early on in the process, you want to understand where this sits in terms of prioritization.
Yeah.
I've been struggling lately because of obviously how quickly the world is changing, that priorities are also changing so quickly.
Yeah.
And so one day, I mean, it's a priority and they need to make a decision, but they are the ones that impose the timelines on themselves. But 2 days later, something else came up and now the prioritization has changed. So how do you how do you approach that situation?
Great question. Now, let me ask you this. When that happens, you can intuitively feel it, right?
Yeah.
You can feel it when all of a sudden there's less interest, less commitment, less follow through on the other side. And by the way, when you're getting them in the commitment meter, remember, you're getting them to convince you that they've got challenges in the area, you have solutions. Now, if you sell technical solutions, usually there's some technical aspects to those challenges. So and if they bring up something that you can address, you bring it up early. Hey, I can address A, B, and C. You're gonna have to judge it for yourself, but we don't do D. Is that a deal killer? Then in the historical data, you get it's a lot of juicy information. How long have you had issues? What have you done to try to address them over the last, you find out how long the buyer's been there. Business financial, we're trying to get a sense, are they going to be able to cost justify it? Because if I dig deep there and somebody says, we don't have any idea what this is costing us, then I start moving towards the door and I might say, well, Tarun, I'm concerned. What if you end up investing a bunch of time, energy, and valuable resource, and you're convinced the solution is right, it's going to address your challenges? If you have no sense as to what the business financial impact is, how are you guys going to cost justify this investment? So that's good. Now, on the personal, so we got challenges, historical, economic impact, and then personal. All as part of the commitment meter. And, I got slides, all this effect, yada, yada. But you guys have such good minds, you don't need slides. So when I get there, not only do I find out, I might say, oh, Tarun, my sense is you're a very busy guy. They all say, oh, very busy. Chances are you have 100 important things you're dealing with every day. They all say, oh, I got 1,000. These three issues that we've been talking about today, finding a better way, Tarun, you're the buyer. How high of a personal priority? Now, so the first time through, when you did that, they probably said, well, very high. Now, hopefully you ask the next, which is the key. Why so high, Tarun? And then, it's like I was telling you about my...
Because of X, Y, and Z, right?
Now, you got to write that in, all this information down. You got to record. This is important for you. So if he says, if I don't have this problem solved by January, I'm out on my rear end. So now, a week later, all of a sudden, he's acting like it's not a priority anymore. So I might say, if you feel it, say it gently. I might say, Tarun, I'm sensing that what we've been talking about is not quite as high a priority as it was, say, 2 weeks ago. Am I right?
Yep.
See, I'm not offending him or anything. I'm not saying, hey, you promised you'd do this, that, that. No, I'm sensing, and also I sound like I don't need the business. You know why? Because I don't need the business. And I want you guys to sell as if you don't need the business. And the reality is you don't need the business. You just think you need the business. If you go deep enough inside yourself and connect up with your soul, you're going to realize you're totally self-sufficient. All right. But we've constructed a certain identity that needs the business. That's fine. I understand it. But I'm not afraid if I sense commitment is lagging to bring it up. Hey, Tarun, if this is no longer a priority for you, it's okay, man. We can revisit this down the road. I'm moving towards the door. Now, you as the buyer have two choices at that point. If I start moving towards the door, you have to do what?
You gotta, as the buyer, if you start moving the door, either you need to start bringing
No,
up.
I'm talking about as the seller.
Oh, as the buyer, I'm wondering why you're going to the door. I mean, you want to sell me something, don't you? Like, do you?
Well, not as first off, Tarun, what I'm hearing is this isn't as high a priority as it once was. Fair?
That's correct. Yeah.
So to make a tough decision like this is going to, I mean, my experience has been if this isn't right up there amongst your top three priorities, what do we both know, Tarun?
It's not going to happen.
Not going to happen. So should we revisit this at some future point? I mean, 2 weeks ago, you told me you needed to get this done within 90 days or your ass was grass. Has something changed, Tarun?
Yes, X, Y, and Z has come up.
So would it be better for you to revisit this after you take care of that? Or
yeah, how about we follow up in 2 weeks to revisit this conversation?
Out of the role play. So I'm not trying to convince him of anything, but I know why. I didn't even go down this road. I only am continuing to pursue this because he convinced me it was a high priority for him. How many of you have had that experience? You start working with a prospective client who has a sense of urgency and then it wanes.
Yeah.
And the worst thing you can do is you sit and then you're racking your brain. Well, I want to be proactive, but I don't want to be that typical pushy, obnoxious, self-serving salesperson that applies pressure. Isn't that the quandary, folks?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the quandary. Well, this is how you do it. Instead of applying pressure, you move towards the door. You might even if they can't get them on the phone, you could send a text or an email like, Tarun, it's Ganesh here. Hey, listen, I left a few voicemail messages, sent a few emails, haven't heard back. Hey, if this is no longer as high a priority as it was 3 weeks ago, it's okay. Just let me know. And now let's say I leave a voicemail message like that. What are you hearing? And you're the buyer. What are you hearing in the seller?
That this guy doesn't care if I buy or not. He knows what he's offering, and he knows the value he brings to the table. Yeah.
He's not desperate for your business. Does that make you more intrigued or less intrigued?
I'm more intrigued as a buyer because now I'm like, why is this guy not desperate?
Maybe because he's doing really well. Maybe he's got good shit.
And now I want to talk to him a little more.
Right, but when somebody's saying, "Well, you told me 3 weeks ago that you better pay attention to this stuff, Tarun. You told me you're going to lose your job," and and you're like, "Whoa, I thought Ganesh was different, but he's like all the rest."
Guru Ganesha, we got to cut this off in a few minutes. Is there a few words you can say about a daily practice that we could do, not just as salespeople, but as entrepreneurs or gig workers in this changing economy, so that we can get to that relaxed space where we don't have to sound so desperate applying for clients?
Learn how to meditate, especially before an important call. And by meditating, there's a process whereby you start with pranayama breathing and you slow your rate of breathing from normally 12 to 20 breaths per minute. By the way, when you're anxious and feel real needy for a sale, your breath rate gets even higher, gets up to the 20, 30, and your breath is shallow and it's getting transmitted. Your neediness gets transmitted to the other person. They can feel it. So what you want to do is move your rate of breath down as close to 2-3 breaths per minute as possible. So I'm rolling out in early September with my partner what's called Ganesh Live. It's a subscription service. I'm going to do 50 live programs every Wednesday from noon to 1:30 Eastern. I'm going to do a program with all the members. Those will get posted, but also there's a lot of my training programs from the past 30 years, or they call it Ganesh Classic, is there. And there's a bunch of pre-call meditations, guided meditations that I've recorded for people, 3 to 5 minutes, that if you just follow it, relax, still yourself, make your breath rate longer, your breathing longer, slower, deeper, and then there's a place inside each of us that's totally peaceful, just that has this sense of knowingness that everything's going to be okay. Some people are there 5 minutes a day. Some people aren't there at all for months at a time. Some people, like the Dalai Lama, spends his entire conscious day in that space. Wherever he goes, he's peaceful. He can walk into a war zone. But especially if you're selling complex, big dollar technical solutions, you need to be coming from a place of calm confidence. And that transmits, and the person on the other side, plus adding in some of the verbiage that I gave you, having the right intention, letting people know, I don't know yet if we're right for you. We're not right for everybody. Let's only do business together if we're both convinced it's the right thing to do. The other person relaxes from the combination of the right intention with the right verbiage. Also, your presence. Like, wow, this guy seems different. He's calm. He's asking great questions. He actually cares. My job is to do a great job listening, understanding, and caring about doing what's right. So in my program, Ganesh Live, which is a subscription for years, like $500, chances are if you start applying this stuff, you'll make 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100,000 more over the next year for the $500 investment. But I don't want to sound too shameless, but I have a lot of conviction in what we do, what Ross and I, Frank and I, Vince and I do.
Why so cheap, Ganesh?
That's a good point. I think maybe you know what, you're right. Price is up. Except for you. You get the low price for giving us this.
Joe, you have your hand up. Last question.
Yeah, I'm curious how you get your leads. Are you mostly talking to these people because they are referrals? Are you like asking questions and people are raising their hand?
See, I've been doing this for 32 years. I've trained, we calculated over 125,000 primarily tech salespeople. And all I have to do is keep my shingle out, and I check voicemail and email and forward most of the leads to Ross because, he's got the energy to follow up on them. But it's all incoming. However, once we get Ganesh Live in play, by the way, you see why that was a great question, because he sells marketing services. When Ganesh Live kicks in, because I could have up to 100,000 people on a Ganesh Live session. So that's when the marketing really, where we'd want to start reaching more people and get more people to raise their hands. Because, I probably will give people the first month free, an opportunity to experience it, and of course, they'll have to cancel after the first month, like everybody else does. But I don't think a lot of people will cancel if they actually show up for the programs. Do you?
No. And my follow-up question then is, how important do you view your referrals? Like, are you marketing what people say about you?
Well, the
Like,
focus, what Frank's going to do, my partner and the CEO of our company, as soon as he's putting on the finishing touches to the infrastructure for Ganesh Live, because it's all going to be state of the art, so we can have a lot of people and it's easy and and the quality of everything's high. What was the question again, Joe? I had a senior moment.
regarding like referrals,
Thanks.
and like
Oh.
not regarding
Well,
referrals,
first,
regarding
we're marketing
reviews.
inside. We do an inside-out marketing process. The first people that are going to hear about Ganesh Live are the 125,000 people that I've already trained, because many of them are senior sales execs for some of the top tech companies in the world. So we'll market to them, but then we're also going to market outside that inner circle to people who, we got some great 20, 30-second video commercials too that will help.
So
Let me get another. Vince has had his hand up. Joe, we'll come back to you, Vince.
Well, no, I just wanted to add to your answer, Ganesh, not that it was not thorough, but one of the things that was really staggering during the years I worked with you and as a student, we noticed, Ganesh has been in this business for a long time, but the people that took his programs to heart wound up in, I don't have the stats on this, but they wound up going into sales management and actually VPs of sales of other companies. I think Salesforce was one of the larger companies that you had the pleasure to have a long engagement with.
Yeah.
But it was shocking how many people who just landed at their new startup or just landed at another tech company that they were going to take from 100 to $1 billion. There was no question in their mind about how they wanted their people trained about sales because of the success that they've had. And I was a beneficiary of that because I was helping do some things that Ross was doing today. But it was stunning at how connected they stayed with Ganesh and the spirit of Ganesh and his teachings for life. It's just a life skill. So I'd encourage anyone who hasn't been through the conscious selling program, as a manager, as a business owner, or as someone who's out there day to day trying to meet a quota, just take it, just expose yourself to it because it's changed my life.
So what I'm hearing Vince say is that it would be a good idea for you to email that group of people and get them to give you raving reviews so that when you started showing this new program to other people, they were being able to see the raving reviews of people who have already had success from your programs.
Yeah. I see why
I don't know how to help you do that.
Marketer, man.
That's what I was trying to say to you, Joe. You spit it out much clearer than you could have.
Joe's a yogi guru, Ganesha.
I've been coming here a lot lately because my mother's to help. She's on the hospital. Could you give me a price for a month because it's a lot of money?
Yeah, wow. No, the only it's $500.
I think we get to role play live
Yeah, I
here.
think we got
So
some.
some garage, like for monthly, pays like $200-300.
Oh, there's going to be a monthly rate.
Now it's difficult.
There's going to be Frank's working out all those details. And if you're interested in getting the details, let Charles know and we'll make sure to get your email. Oh, Lorna, so great to be with you again.
Same here.
So Charles, grab maybe if you even on chat, leave your email address, unless that you already have them. And I'll make sure as soon as the first mailings go out about the program that you guys get it. And there may even be a little introductory deal, if you get it done in a 90-day window prior to when we start in September. I hear rumors of that.
Yeah, the friends and family discount.
The friends and families price. And I'm feeling awfully close to all of you guys already.
And when are you starting this? Do you have a date?
Well, Frank says we're starting in September, but I would say probably the first Wednesday after Labor Day.
Excellent. Well, Guru Ganesha, this was fantastic. I really appreciate this time spent with you. It's been too long. Thanks to the great participants for asking good questions. This is an endless conversation, how to make selling conscious and then make everything else conscious. So thanks again, Guru Ganesha.
And one last thing, Joe, Ross is the man. He's way better than me, you know. I've lost a little bit on my fastball, but Ross is like in his prime. Serious. You're in good hands.